Well, the war in Ukraine is being fought out in the mass media as well as on the battlefield. In our next report, we profile a pop singer who's become one of Russia's highest paid entertainers. He's also an enthusiastic propagandist for President Vladimir Putin.
Meet Shaman. This young singer-star is on the rise in Russia, thanks in large part to a powerful fan base, the Kremlin. Before the war in Ukraine, Shaman's songs sounded very different. Now he counts Vladimir Putin among his biggest fans, thanks to a drastic change in looks and lyrics. Shaman, whose real name is Yaroslav Dronov, has morphed from a talent show participant to Russian superstar. Gone are the dreadlocks. His trademarks now include a wooden cross necklace and a Russian flag on his arm. And patriotic song lyrics like "I'm a Russian in spite of the world." Shaman's transformation has made him a Kremlin darling.
In our country, a long and shameful tradition exists of sponsoring and spreading state propaganda through pop music.
But some artists have chosen to leave Russia rather than be part of the Kremlin's propaganda campaign, either because of political pressure or to signal their disagreement with the Kremlin. Morgenstern is one of them. The millionaire rapper now lives in Dubai. In this video, he listens to music in a car next to a young Ukrainian who plays a voice message from his mother describing their house being bombed. Whether out of true conviction or pragmatism, Shaman and other artists have chosen a different route.
The hype around Shaman is artificial. His real popularity is not as big as Russian state media proclaims it to be and that they exploit him for. Everyone has listened to his songs, but simply because you can't hide from them, just like you can't hide from Putin's face.
The shift to a more patriotic look and sound has been very lucrative for Shaman. He's often invited to perform at state-sponsored shows. The question is whether that popularity will last, once he is no longer needed to amplify Moscow's wartime communication strategy.
Now, Svetlana Matvienko is an assistant professor of critical media analysis at the Simon Fraser University in Burnaby, Canada, and is currently joining us from the German city of Lüneburg. Welcome to DW. So, first and foremost, I'd like to know what type of propaganda is used in Russia?
Hi, thank you for having me. I've been observing a lot of types of Russian propaganda used during this year and other years. And of course, you can say that it's very kind of, the variety is quite impressive, but also they converge, right? So here we speak about popular culture, and popular culture, one of the major sources and realms for propaganda, but also they converge with news, with other types of propaganda, and they all channel emotion, channel certain affect in a similar way. So in this sense, I can say that someone like a singer Shaman can be really compared to Margarita Simonyan, the head of Russia today, and they are similar in how they do it. There is a lot of affect, there is a lot of kind of, particular wording, and they all function as this joint choir of that channels the message from the Russian government.
Well, let's break it down a little bit. So we're looking here at the singer Shaman, for example, and tell us about the Kremlin's attempts to win over young people. Are there many more examples like Shaman, and how do they go about it, say, for a specific age group, like those who would like listening to Shaman's music?
Yes, I definitely address young people, and he has a kind of almost a little visual expression of counterculture. However, at the same time, the message is really contradictory to what real counterculture would kind of demand or want to hear, and this is very paradoxical. But I also want to note another very important thing that has to do with the image of Shaman, for example. You know, I am a specialist on the topics of cyber war and disinformation and propaganda and things like this, not a popular culture. And probably otherwise I wouldn't have noticed Shaman if not the name itself. So he actually came across my attention precisely because of the name. And here I find it quite problematic and also kind of, you know, instrumentalized name, because the name obviously comes from different religions, different cultures of so-called Russia, right? From the indigenous people of Russia who are being colonized and occupied. And the fact that so much a kind of, you know, Russian-looking boy and young man who sings the songs that appeal mostly kind of almost for the older generation, not so much for younger people, but he is a combination, you know, like his age appeals to young groups. His songs appeal to kind of some middle age and maybe even older population. But at the same time, there is also attempt by using cultural appropriation to make a link to other kind of ethnicities and indigenous people of Russia. But the way how it's done, it's extremely problematic and shows, again, a kind of really embedded imperialism and colonialism.
Right. Tell us how effective you think it is.
I don't... it's very difficult, in fact, to evaluate and to measure the impact because we don't have enough information, probably, and because also what we see there is just the surface. Looking at the surface, looking at his dominance on the scene, on the pop scene, it may look effective, but at the same time, the question would be quite similar, and the situation would be quite similar when you speak about the effect of Russian propaganda, right? So even though the machine, like the news, even though the machine is definitely incredibly powerful and totally dominates, but if you look at, really think of whether or not people indeed believe it, right? It's we don't know.
I'm going to have to... Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We could talk about this for quite a lot longer, but thank you for joining us on DW, Svetlana Matviyenko.